Okay, so moving on to emotional and social development in adolescence. We start with Erickson's theory, his idea about identity versus role confusion, that during adolescence we were struggling or are struggling to define who we are, what we want to be when we grow up, what our relationships will be, what our sexual orientation is, our identifying with our ethnic group, all of those sorts of things, and that some of the confusion can be the result of a lack of direction or can result in lack of direction. It can be from earlier issues in Erickson's theory that were not resolved properly, and some of the influences from society. Self esteem continues to develop. There typically it's believed in adolescence that self-esteem takes a hit. It seems to be much more dramatic in females, and it can be affected by school transitions, moving from middle school into a larger high school, and all of the stresses and sort of self-consciousness that can come with this. um, Having close friends and good reliable friends and good parenting relationships, and also competence in some area. This says job competence, but it could be in a particular area of school or athletics or community involvement. All of those can help give sort of a boost to adolescent self-esteem. Okay, and as far as moral development, we see with Kohlberg that adolescents are able to think at this post-conventional or begin to think at this post-conventional principled level, where they have a lot of ideas and thoughts about how society should work and how we should decide right and wrong. As we know from some of the research on Kohlberg's ideas, not many people reach that post conventional morality, particularly in the application of it. So they may sort of have these ideas, but in real life, in real actual situations, we don't always act at this post conventional principled level. Friendships are extremely important to adolescents. There can certainly be some problems with friendships, and from things like this idea of co-rumination, where adolescents will worry together or focus together on some of these negative things that can increase rates of anxiety, depression, and even eating disorders. There's sort of that typical idea of aggression in particularly female relationships, verbal aggression, social aggression. And now we see a great increase in this with internet communication and the rise of social media and the use of social media for adolescents. So again, this is an area of the discussion where I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas, and if you'd like to do a little bit of research on how the use of social media has increased in these negative interactions. Have there been any benefits that you can think of? And how could we mitigate some sort of this increase in communication that's seen in particularly adolescents, but really across the age span? Are there ways that we can enhance the benefits of it and try to decrease some of the damage? Again, adolescent friendships are very important. They are they can be in beneficial ways, helpful at reducing stress, and helpful for teenagers to not see that they're alone in sort of their ways of thinking or the things that they're struggling with. Researchers have looked more and more at the benefits of peer pressure. So how can we use that idea of peer pressure in a positive way to encourage pro-social behaviors and healthy behaviors? Dating is not uncommon in adolescence. Many individuals will engage in their first dating relationship Typically, there are negatives associated with individuals that engage in dating too early. It does increase their risk of sexual activity and dangerous sexual activity. Dating violence is something that has, traditionally been seen. Relationship violence is something that's a problem for adulthood. There's been an increased focus, and fortunately, an increased focus in uh, violent relationships in adolescence as well. This can occur in traditional male female relationships, in gay and lesbian relationships. All of them are susceptible to um, sort of unhealthy relationships and dating violence. And so, increased awareness about this and education and what to do if you suspect that a friend might be involved in a poor relationship. All of those are really important. Depression can be seen in adolescence. It's one of the psychological disorders that can emerge at any point in life, but certainly in adolescence. So identifying individuals, sometimes adolescents may have hereditary factors. They may have depression in their families with a parent or other family member. Depression is frequently diagnosed in girls more than boys. And again, we're not sure if this is because teenage girls are more likely to vocalize their depression, more likely to be diagnosed, or if really girls are more likely to suffer depression. We do know that it can be seen in boys. They tend to manifest it in different ways than girls. And so awareness of that is very important, and early intervention for treatment. Adolescent suicide is, of course, a great concern. There is a dramatic increase that occurs in adolescence, although recently we're seeing that increase occurring earlier and earlier with even younger children. So again, this is an area where education is very important, identifying individuals who may be at risk and intervening as much as possible, as early as possible. I will post in the lecture area some additional resources for identifying some of the warning signs of suicide in adolescents, or really any age group, and some resources that are available. This is one of the areas where social media may have a beneficial impact. There's been an increase in hotlines and even texting hotlines for suicide. And access to teletherapy, online therapy, particularly now during COVID, because there is a concern that individuals are not being identified because we're just out less, we're in school less. So how can we use some of these social media aspects in a beneficial way? Again, we mentioned in the cognitive area that delinquency is a concern in adolescence. Difficulties with school across the board increase in individuals' risk for delinquency and not finishing high school. And we know from many studies and years of study that a high school diploma does increase individuals' ability to function later in life. So intervening and getting adolescents to particularly finish high school and to go on to further education if they wish, whether it's a trade school or other type of postgraduate or post-high school education, job readiness, things like that are all very important in adolescence. We see just here, again, the risk factors for delinquency can start as early as early childhood and middle childhood. So it's not something that just generally occurs spontaneously in adolescence. So again, early intervention, early identification is really important. Teachers are obviously important for this, and how could this COVID crisis affect adolescent delinquency? Are students more likely to attend to school online? Has this been a beneficial structure for anyone? some schools are reporting that their students are, more attentive to an online school environment. However, many schools, I'm sorry, are reporting that students are showing an increased difficulty with online schooling and really not benefiting from being out of school, whether it's a hybrid or all virtual environment.